The Montana Heritage Tour is a 6-part series featuring mostly small, rural museums. This project is a joint venture of the Montana Historical Society and Helena Civic Television. You can find cultural and historical treasures no matter which way you travel across the Big Sky State. The nice thing about starting in Helena is that when you drive out of town in any direction, you're going to find gold. Malta is one of a number of small towns with big stories situated on the High Line, an extensive stretch of prairie just south of the Canadian border, where U.S. Highway 2 parallels the historic track of the Great Northern Railroad. The Phillips County Museum in Malta is one of 13 facilities on the Dinosaur Trail in Montana. And right next door is the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum. We're going to pay a brief visit to both, with due deference to the monstrous and diminutive creatures that once roamed this large swath of planet Earth. But before that, we'll jump ahead in time to the 19th and early 20th century for fuller understanding of the material side of ranching and homesteading life. Sharon Emond is the full-time director at Phillips County Museum, and she walks us through several aspects of this rather large, small facility.
And we have our museum divided into different sections. So today we're in the western section. And we have the cowboys' bunkhouse, so we have the bunk beds the cowboys would have used. We have some of the gear that the cowboys wear, like chaps, that would keep the rain and the snow off of them as they were riding. We've got a variety of saddles. There was a saddle maker in our community. It was B.H. Koch, and he made a lot of these saddles that we have on display. We have the leather fly nets that they would put on the team of horses, because in our Milk River Valley there's a lot of flies and mosquitoes. So as they were using teams of horses, those fly nets would keep the bugs off their teams. Then we have the horse collars and the bridles that they would put on the teams when they were working. They used a lot of horses in this area. Now we're in the hospital section of the museum, and this is one of our very early pioneer doctors we had, Dr. Clay, and he doctored all the homestead people that developed the flu epidemic, and he himself contacted the flu at the age of 52 and passed away. These were some of the items he had to work with: the bed pans, the chamber pots, some of the eye to test your eyes with. This was some of the dental equipment, one of the dental drills. This was one of the bone saws that they used if you had broken bones. The tables and the lights that they used in the operating rooms. The tray for their tools. And these are some of the early tools they worked with. And this is one of the quilts from the Lovejoy community, made by the Ladies' Aid in 1916. And this is one of our earliest histories of the homesteaders that homesteaded in the Lovejoy community about 20 miles north of Malta. And for 10 cents they would sell, you could have your name put on it for 10 cents. And they even gave President Wilson and his wife, Mrs. Wilson, a square. And all the money they obtained from the sale of these quilt raffle tickets went to the soldiers in World War I. So now we're in the office of the Phillips County Museum in our research genealogy area. So we have a lot of family files on the different families that homesteaded in our Phillips County. So we have drawers of family files if the researchers come looking for their family history. And then we have a resource library, and we have the history of the old rural schools. We have the history of our county, some of our neighboring counties' history, the cemetery records. So any of the homesteaders that come looking for information on their family homestead. Then we have our plat maps. So we can go to the computer and look up on Ancestry.com where the families were, and then this gives us their township and range of where the homesteads were located.
Genealogy is not everyone's cup of tea, but the records kept at this and other rural museums contain the real history of what really matters to people and families, from cradle to grave. Sharon showed us all sorts of items from the homesteading era, including butter churns and molds, sauerkraut cutters, china closets, furniture, dishes, and mink muffs. The collection at the Phillips County Museum is extensive and emblematic of the importance of donating artifacts of ordinary life to community-based facilities like this one. One of the unique features of this museum is a .45 caliber Ruger revolver, donated to the museum by the late Jim Taylor. This pistol is also a work of art. It commemorates Montana's centennial in 1989. Among the many common themes connecting nearly all the small museums in Montana, an appreciation for firearms seems paramount. The wild, wild west of our mythologies and imaginings was really a frontier of another sort, where the cultivation of the soil went hand in hand with the fostering of community through learning and sharing in the arts.
We're in the rural school section of our museum today, and we have some little different items. These are the things that they would make the lines on the chalkboard, and this would be their music staff going across. Chalk came in boxes, so here would be a box of chalk, and this was an octagon-shaped chalk, their very best grade A chalk that came in the wooden boxes. They taught a lot of manuscript writing, so these were some of the books that they emphasized script writing. So the students would practice in these books the manuscript writing. They wrote with pen and inkwell, so these were the pen and inkwell. They would ring the bell in the morning to start their classes, so there would be the school bell. And the teacher had a variety of discipline techniques. This would be the ruler, and they sometimes disciplined with a ruler. This would be their dictionaries, where the children would put their work that they turned in. And this would be the very stately teacher. Some of the rules they had for teachers were teachers were forbidden to wear bathing suits, and they were forbidden to have their skirts slit that exposed their ankles. Some reasons for dismissal would be if they were smoking cigarettes, or if they were found at public dance halls or pool halls. Another thing forbidden for teachers was marriage for the women teachers. So those were some of the rules that teachers had back in 1886.
Just across the parking lot from the Phillips County Museum is the Plains Dinosaur Museum, where Dixie Lee Stordahl introduced us to a strange cast of characters who roamed the highline when it was a primordial swamp.
I welcome you to the Great Plains to see some fantabulous fossils. We also have a small raptor. It's actually a turkey-sized raptor, and it was found also in the same formation, the Judith River Formation, and it is about 77 million years old, and it has some really vicious claws and teeth. It was the only meat eater that we have in this facility that's a dinosaur. We also have Leonardo. He's the most well-preserved dinosaur in the world, according to the Guinness Book of World Records in 2004. And he has skin, soft tissue, and stomach content. And actually, when we did the scans, we could see a crop in his neck. So it was kind of like a bird, that it would be able to eat the food, take it into its crop, let it sit there for a while, then regurgitate, chew it again, and swallow it into its stomach. The Dinosaur Field program from the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum is a 3-hour program that they take the kids out to the field and they actually find dinosaurs, a dinosaur fossil. There's what I call, it's built for success. So the kids they get a lot of information, a lot of geology, they learned how to use a compass. they map, and they learn how to take care of a fossil. That's the field program. Then there's also the 90-minute in-house program that takes a total tour of the gallery, and it also talks about how to do the preparation of a fossil and eventually how to display it.
Museums like this one exemplify the opportunity to not just look, but really learn. On the day of our visit, Dixie had a young assistant working in the lab. One thing for sure that keeps coming up all over the state is that young people and really old creatures are strangely simpatico. Kids and dinosaurs are a good mix.
There are several of the facilities that have adult digs where they can go out into the field for the whole day or for a week and look for dinosaurs, actually find fossils, and then eventually bring them into the field station. We have Arrow, it's a little crocodile from the sea, because Montana used to have a sea in the middle, well, in the middle of the United States. There was the Cretaceous Seaway, and we have a little crocodile that was a seagoing croc. It would eat fish, lots of fish, and it was about 36 feet long. And we've also, one of our littler kids, a 4-year-old, found this Triceratops horn, and she just said, well, I think that's a dinosaur over there, and sure enough, it was. We've got a lot of marine fossils, awesome crabs and lobsters, nautiluses, ammonites and baculites. We have quite a few fish fossils and a great display on plant fossils. This is our lab, and we do, when we bring a fossil in from the field, we do the preparation, or we take the matrix off down to the fossil bone and then work it to get the fossil to be back into a normal position, or something that we can put up for a display. This is a tibia of a hadrosaur. One of the things that really helps out for the tourists, they get to go out and actually help find fossils and then bring them in. And that's a special part to this museum too. So our small museum our goal is to keep the fossils in this area where the fossils were found.
Not far from Malta and just off the High Lines Highway 2 is the pretty small town of Chinook, which is also the Blaine County seat and the location of the Blaine County Museum. We were warmly welcomed there by Executive Director Jude Shepard.
I always tell people that I have the best job in town, and I truly mean that. It's great. We have such a fine collection of artifacts, and the people who started the museum in 1977, I think, had the right idea. They didn't just throw a bunch of stuff in a building and say that it was a museum. They worked on each exhibit, and each board member had an area that was theirs, and I think they did an excellent job. We have tweaked over the years and updated, but the collection that you will see has been here for a long time. We are part of the Montana Dinosaur Trail. We have, I think, a very fine paleontology exhibit with 12 cases that hold fossils from Blaine County. We have a wonderful Native American collection that was thankfully purchased by Ernest and Lucille Martins, because the guy who was collecting these things was going to sell them to someone from back east, and Ernest and Lucille found out and purchased the collection and gave it to the museum. And it's through the generosity of so many people that we have what we have here. The photo shop, Margaret Williamson had been a board member for many years, and when she passed away, her husband came to me and he said, "You do something you think Margaret would like." And we decided we have such a great collection of old photos that let's do a photo shop. And we do have I would say nearly I think 7,000 photographs in our photo collection, at least.
Jude's enthusiasm for her work is catching, and it extends to every aspect of the museum, including the bookstore portion of the gift center.
We have a great bookstore. Slowly built up quite a stock. We have nearly 500 titles for sale, and the tourists that come through and the locals truly appreciate what they can purchase in that store, because I carry unique titles, and we have Montana history, we have Native American history, we have a lot of the Nez Perce history, scenery books, cookbooks, children's books. It's a great selection for people. You know that we have so many good exhibits, and I am always amazed at the homestead history. And so the Homestead Shack, that kind of has a special place in my heart. There are a lot of things in that little shack that show you how hard those people must have worked. The same with the Early West exhibit. I mean, everything was manual labor. I mean, I don't think anybody had high cholesterol back then because they worked so hard. It's just like perhaps they did, but not many. The Lloyd Sweet collection is very unique, and included in that collection are 2 original Charlie Russell letters that were written to Lloyd's father, Ensign Sweet. A highlight of the museum is the audiovisual multimedia presentation, 40 Miles from Freedom. And we are the interim visitor center for the Bear Paw Battlefield, so we always hope that people stop here before they head out to the battlefield and watch this, because it is very well done and tells what happened.
The Bear Paw Battlefield is just 16 miles south down a paved road from here. We didn't take it on the day of our visit, but you should.
Our church exhibit, a lot of people comment, oh, they even have a church exhibit, and that's great. The things that are in that exhibit came from the South Fairview Catholic Community Church, and that was built about 16 miles south on the Barney Olson Road. It was built by the Homesteaders, and the priest would drive his little car out there and say Mass in the afternoon. As I understand it, he would go out there and say Mass. And when they no longer used the church, it was abandoned, and everything just sat there. And people started going in and vandalizing or taking things, so the people who had attended the church decided they should bring those things, the altar, the side altars, the pew, the Stations of the Cross, into the museum. And we are so fortunate that they did, because in 1991 we had a wildfire out south, and it burned 182,000 acres of land and everything in its path. They just simply couldn't fight it. The wind was blowing 40 miles an hour, and it burned everything, and the church burned. If we're lucky, on a good year, we see nearly 5,000 people. So that's not too bad for a small museum. I don't think it's anything to be worried about, because we do. We have people from all over the world and the country visit this museum. Word of mouth is a good advertisement, and people do mention this when they travel on. I have people stop and say, we heard about your museum, so we made sure we had, we came in and took the time to see it.
Just down the street from this museum is another one, the Blaine County Wildlife Museum, a privately financed wonderworks of artistic display. Board member Scott McKenzie introduced us to the layout.
We started this project about 19 years ago. Bill Harbold approached me concerning this building, which was an old theater building in Chinook. The Blaine Bank of Montana, which is now Wells Fargo, had offered to donate the building for a community enterprise. And Bill and I started talking about the project, and from there the Blaine County Wildlife Museum developed. So we started from scratch. We came in and removed all the seats, leveled the floor, tried to continue the ambience of the theater, but yet make it into a museum.
At the Blaine County Wildlife Museum, The bird and animal displays are organized into distinct habitats. There's a mountains to plains section, a bear and moose encounter, and a wetlands area.
We're looking at deer. We have the whitetail, a pair of whitetail, buck and doe, and also mule deer, buck and doe. We have a red fox that's looking up at the squirrel. We have birds, including the great horned owl and cedar waxwings in the tree. We have a mountain lion down low, and then above that we have a bighorn sheep ram and 2 ewes, and above that is the mountain goat up on top.
The replica buffalo jump is uniquely stirring, as it includes a soundtrack of striking verisimilitude.
This is the first exhibit we ever did in the museum, and it was done and designed by Acorn Exhibits. They started the exhibit. We talked about a plan for what we wanted, and it was a buffalo jump with the animals tumbling off the cliff. The rock you see here is concrete and fiberglass, and every rock in the display and the pebbles and everything else were hand painted by Acorn. Every color in this display was done by hand. We have 2 Native Americans in the exhibit. They were cast the faces from real human beings. This is the grizzly bear moose encounter. This was the last exhibit that we put together for the museum. The mural in the background was painted by David Rock, who did the Mountains to Plain mural also. The tree the trunk is a real trunk from a pine tree, but every branch that was put on that tree was put in artificially. They do a wonderful job of making it look natural. If you look above there are some needles within the tree that look like they're dead. Well, those were done by hand by Liz Marshall, one of the Acorn people. She painted everything that's in that exhibit was made to look natural. We're open from June through August, and then the rest of the year we can put tours for people that request them. Board members will come forward, and we have a sign on the door, and we do a lot of tours in the off season. And we try to accommodate everybody that wants to see the tour of the museum when they come and ask for that. In the spring we have students that come around. There's usually in buses from different grades will come, and it's usually in the springtime, and they really enjoy the museum. Sometimes their teachers will tell them and give advanced questionnaires of the museum, and then they have to fill out the questionnaires as they walk around. But the museum really goes over well with the students. They enjoy it, and the kids, especially the littler kids, get all excited, and it gets pretty noisy. We also get, when the kids have come through, they go back to their hometowns, and they'll bring their parents back or their relatives back for a second look. So we have the little young ambassadors going out there and bringing in more people all the time. We've had offers of animals that aren't native to or migrate into Montana, so we've rejected those, and we've kept this a Montana museum, both birds and animals. We will not take animals from out of state or out of country. We've had many offers, and we've rejected them because we wanted to keep that Montana tradition. We've been going 19 years, and I'd say we have 70% of the original board members are still with us. And those board members are all volunteers and work very hard. Everybody picks up their part of the work, and it's been a good working board, no problems, and that's one of the reasons for the success of the museum. The other thing that we've been very lucky to get is Acorn Exhibits. They started with the buffalo jump, and then we go from exhibit to exhibit as we raise the funds, but they're perfectionists, and I think that shows throughout the museum.
There are other displays on the perimeter walls and hallways. In a very small space, you meet up with an astounding array of creatures, all of them belonging to the Montana landscape. Looking at the amazing detail on display in these dioramas, a somewhat amusing and richly rewarding irony springs to mind. In many of Montana's small museums, you go inside to marvel at outdoor life. At the Blaine Wildlife Museum in Chinook, you can immerse yourself in nature without battling bugs. At these and other museums on the High Line, the combination of stories and stuff depicting frontier lifestyles contrast in wondrous ways with the prehistoric period of the dinosaurs. These places offer plenty of hard evidence of harsh realities in the recent and ancient past, but they soften the blow with sweet tributes to strong characters and a bit of humor, giving funny names to monstrous creatures with creepy looks and gory habits. Next time we're going west to the Deer Lodge Valley and across the Skalkaho Pass to the Bitterroot. See you soon.
They are the farmers, the miners, the timber workers and millwrights, the small business owners and the captains of industry. They are the hands and the minds, the shoulders and the backs that made Montana. And we're proud to say that we see them in more than just museums. We see them in the people we continue to serve today. Montana State Fund, proud supporter of Montana's museums and the Montana Historical Society.